Was this a State of the Union address, or the launch of a political comeback tour for 2026? On February 24, 2026, President Donald Trump stood before a joint session of Congress and delivered what would become the longest State of the Union speech in modern American history. Nearly 2 hours of bold claims, sharp criticism, patriotic moments, and unmistakable campaign-style energy. Supporters called it powerful. Critics called it combative. But everyone agreed on one thing: it was unforgettable. Let's break down the biggest highlights and why this speech could shape America's political direction heading into the midterms. Trump began with a tone of triumph and confidence. In his very first lines, he portrayed the U.S. economy as rejuvenated and stronger than it has been in years. According to him, inflation is dropping, jobs are growing, wages are rising, and the stock market is setting record highs. He framed his economic blueprint, rooted in tax incentives, deregulation, and America First trade policies, as the engine driving this upswing. Whether one agrees with every statistic or not, this opening clearly set the tone. This administration wants to be seen as the architects of an American comeback on Main Street, Wall Street, and around the world. From economic optimism, Trump shifted gears into one of his most enduring themes: immigration and border security. In a forceful cadence, he highlighted increased border enforcement, expanded security infrastructure, and stricter measures against illegal crossings. He defined secure borders not only as a matter of immigration policy, but of national safety, economic protection, and sovereign stability. Trump argued that tougher border measures protect American jobs and communities. And he claimed that illegal crossings had begun to fall because of these actions. The room erupted at times with applause, especially from Republican lawmakers, while Democrats responded with opposition, creating a dramatic backdrop to the policy debate. Then came one of the most debated and attention-grabbing parts of the entire address: trade and tariffs, and a pointed criticism of the Supreme Court of the United States. Trump defended his tariff strategy as a vital tool to protect American industries from unfair global competition. But he didn't stop there. He openly criticized a recent Supreme Court ruling that curtailed aspects of his tariff authority, calling the decision very unfortunate and framing it as a strategic setback for national economic defense. In a statement that immediately went viral, he suggested that tariffs might one day play a role in federal revenue in place of income taxes. A controversial idea that ignited debate across economic and political circles. His criticism of the core underscored a broader theme: that executive power is necessary to safeguard America's economic and strategic interests, even in the face of judicial constraints. As the speech unfolded, Trump tackled another issue that impacts everyday Americans: the cost of living, particularly healthcare costs. He voiced renewed commitments to lowering prescription drug prices, expanding competition, and bringing more domestic production of essential medicines so American patients are not paying more than anyone else. He presented these proposals not just as policy goals, but as promises to ease the financial burden on working families. A tactic clearly designed to resonate with middle-class voters ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. But if the economic and domestic policy sections were commanding, it was the foreign policy portion that delivered some of the most serious global headlines. Trump used his address to squarely confront the threat he believes Iran poses to international security, especially concerning nuclear weapons development. He reminded audiences that Iran had been warned not to rebuild its weapons program, and asserted that the regime continued to pursue what he described as sinister ambitions in expanding its nuclear and missile capability. He said that Iran already possesses missiles capable of threatening Europe and U.S. bases overseas, and claimed that they were working on systems that could soon reach the continental United States. In a definitive line that garnered thunderous applause, Trump declared, "My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain: I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen." This warning wasn't abstract. It tied together geopolitical tension, military readiness, diplomatic negotiations, and national security doctrine in a single powerful message. Trump balanced a stated preference for diplomacy with a firm stance that the U.S. would act if necessary to prevent Iran from developing nuclear capabilities. Some analysts saw this as the most serious foreign policy declaration in the speech, potentially shaping global geopolitics and U.S. military strategy for years. Critics, However, questioned whether provoking Tehran could escalate tensions. Without clear evidence of imminent threat, that debate, serious and consequential, ensures that this part of the address will be discussed long after the speech ends. Trump also took aim at election reform, urging stricter voter ID laws and transparency measures, while honoring military service members, veterans, and everyday Americans who demonstrated extraordinary courage. These moments brought applause, bipartisan at times, and helped humanize parts of a speech otherwise heavy on policy and political positioning. What stood out most was not just the policy content, but the underlying energy. This State of the Union wasn't merely about reporting progress. It felt strategic, forward-leaning, and unmistakably crafted with an eye toward the 2026 elections. From economic claims to border security, from tariff battles with the Supreme Court to stern warnings on Iran's nuclear program, every piece of this address sent a clear message. This administration wants to define America's future on its own terms, economically, domestically, and on the world stage. So now the big question for your viewers: did Trump's State of the Union speech strengthen America's resolve, or did it deepen political divides at home and risk greater tensions abroad? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.